Sports magazine moguls time. We are counting down the highest sports magazine sales from October 2024. Let's do it. All right, before we jump into the top 10, we're going to start with some honorable mentions that just missed the cut. And first off, we've got Magic Johnson's first Sports Illustrated cover. This is from 1978. This cover doesn't always get a lot of love. Kind of an interesting, unique cover here with Magic on the in the shot with a tuxedo and a top hat. He's a sophomore here at Michigan State, but it was his very first cover appearance, and this is a CGC 7.0 newsstand copy sold on eBay for $1,000. Next up, we got a nice vintage Sports Illustrated cover here featuring two NBA greats. That's Walt Frazier and that's Jerry West back in the finals, Knicks versus Lakers. This is a CGC 8.5 newsstand copy sold on Heritage Auctions for $1,050. Next up, How Ali Fooled Them All. This is known as the Rumble in the Jungle. It's a Sports Illustrated cover from 1974. You got George Foreman, you got Muhammad Ali landing that nice right there on Foreman. And this is a CGC 9.4 newsstand copy. Very nice copy of one of the most memorable boxing moments of all time. This one sold on Heritage Auctions for $1,050. From 1992, two NBA legends who were tied together throughout their entire NBA careers, throughout their entire basketball careers, really. This is Larry Bird, this is Magic Johnson, and it's a CGC 9.6 copy. Memories, Bird and Magic, gone but never to be forgotten, sold on eBay for $1,100. From 1954, this is the second ever issue of Sports Illustrated, under Time Inc., that is. And it's just some golf bags on the cover. Nothing real special about the cover itself, but the value with this one comes from two spots. Number one is that it is the second ever issue, and number two is that the inside of this magazine has sports cards on the inside, specifically a Mickey Mantle sports card, and it's in the theme of Topps, which Mickey Mantle actually never had a Topps sports card released in 1954 due to some sort of dispute negotiations. So this card that's inside the Sports Illustrated issue number 2 is the only place you can find a 1954 Topps card of Mickey Mantle. And this CGC 9.2 newsstand copy sold on Heritage Auctions for $1,200. From 1967, here's the first Sports Illustrated cover appearance for hockey legend Bobby Orr. It's a CGC 7.5 newsstand, and this one sold on Heritage Auctions for $1,260. From 1985, Inside Sports Magazine. This is a nice throwback cover here. You got Patrick Ewing, you got Michael Jordan Showtime in the new NBA. This has been autographed by both Hall of Famers, and it sold on Heritage Auctions for $1,333.20. From 1954, this is Sport Magazine, kind of the biggest alternative back in the day to Sports Illustrated. And this is Stan the Man Musial on the cover. How about this? CGC 9.8. Now, folks, let me just take a little moment to take some credit here. I cleaned and pressed this issue for a friend. He then sold it on Heritage Auctions and came up with a nice result, $1,440. From 2022, this is Time Magazine, and you got Shohei Ohtani on the cover. It's Showtime, autographed by Shohei Ohtani, and this one sold on eBay for $1,499.99. From 1984, this is one of my favorite publications, and this is the NBA draft guide that came out of the NBA Today magazine. NBA Today magazine was in a newspaper form, but this little draft guide here was actually an insert on the inside of that newspaper magazine. And of course, you got Hakeem Olajuwon, you got Michael Jordan slamming it down for the North Carolina Tar Heels, and this one sold raw, ungraded on eBay for $1,500. From 1954, this is the very first premiere issue for Sports Illustrated. You got Hall of Famer Eddie Matthews on the cover, and it seems that the autographed copies of this issue from Eddie Matthews have been becoming more popular. They've popped up in a lot of my videos recently after not really seeing them too often, and this one is ungraded. It's got the nice gold signature Sharpie there from Eddie Matthews, and they even included the little clip there from, I guess, the event where they had Eddie Matthews sign, and this one sold on eBay for $1,575. From 1964, this is the second Sports Illustrated cover for Sandy Koufax. Believe it or not, this issue at one time, for a very brief time, held the record for the highest sale of any Sports Illustrated magazine. It was a 9.8 copy that I believe sold for somewhere around $32,000. That record didn't stand very long. But yeah, this is a nice newsstand copy here. It's been autographed by Sandy Koufax and sold on eBay for just south of $2,000. Next up, Matt Mania. Hulk Hogan is pro wrestling's top banana. This is the first and only Sports Illustrated cover appearance for legend Hulk Hogan's from 1985. This is a nice CGC 9.2 newsstand copy sold on Heritage Auctions for $2,100. And here's the part of the honorable mentions where we showcase some non-sports magazines, but get into a little bit of pop culture here. This is New York Times Magazine. It's from 1996. You got Tupac Shakur, you got Suge Knight, you got Snoop Doggy Dogg. This one sold raw, ungraded, on eBay, in auction with 29 bids. Final going price, $1,050. This one's a little bit of sports here. This is Thrasher Magazine, the most popular and well-known skateboarding magazine, and this was the premier issue, #1, from back in 1981. This copy sold raw, ungraded on eBay for $1,500. Here's one that I've seen a lot of over the years. I don't know a ton about it, but it appears to be one of the first appearances of Bitcoin on a magazine cover. In fact, this is called Bitcoin Magazine, and this is issue #1. This copy is graded a CGC 9.6. It also went in auction on eBay, and with 29 bids, it sold for $1,585. From 1990, here's Donald Trump on the cover of Playboy magazine. This one's been autographed by the Donald, authenticated by JSA, and it sold raw on eBay for $1,800. PSA is not quite yet grading magazines, but they will slab and authenticate a single magazine page, and that includes a magazine cover, such as right here. This is Time Magazine from 1960. So, think about it. John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. This was before that, and it's the Kennedy family on the cover. This one's been autographed by three members of the Kennedy family. Robert F. Kennedy Sr., it's been signed by Ted Kennedy and also Rose Kennedy. All three autographed, all three authenticated by PSA. Once again, this is the cover only, sold on eBay for $1,995. And we're going back to Donald Trump on Time Magazine in 2024. It's the iconic cover, the iconic photo after he was shot and nearly assassinated. This is a CGC 9.8 copy. This one went up in auction on eBay, and with 14 bids, it sold for $2,054. From 1981, Life magazine. This is Ronald Reagan on the cover. It's been autographed by Ronald Reagan. It says, "With best wishes, Ronald Reagan, 40th president," authenticated by JSA, and it sold on eBay for $2,500. Here's another one that I've seen a lot of over the years, and I've never featured this one on my channel just because I didn't really know much about it. Still don't know much about it, but what it appears to me is that this was the first appearance on a magazine cover for Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z. And just in all honesty, I actually was a huge Dragon Ball Z fan growing up as a young kid. So this is pretty cool. Shonen Jump Weekly from 1984, and this copy sold raw on eBay for $2,600. Here's the iconic Playboy issue #1 from 1953 featuring Marilyn Monroe on the cover. This is CGC 5.0 newsstand copy, sold on eBay for $3,800. And now let's roll into the top 10 highest selling sports magazines from last month. We're going to start off with this #10. This is Steph Curry on the cover of Slam magazine from 2015. It's a beautiful CGC 9.8. Now, there's a little caveat that makes this sale interesting. Heritage Auctions actually had this magazine listed and advertised as the first Slam cover for Steph Curry. That is incorrect. Steph Curry actually had his first Slam cover a couple years earlier in 2013. It's kind of a tough one to find. It's a little bit more obscure, and so it wasn't until I believe like a day before this auction ended that Heritage finally apparently realized their mistake and fixed the listing. But for nearly the entirety of this auction being up, which I believe is around 30 days, this one was labeled and advertised as Steph Curry's first slam cover. So who knows how much that influenced the bidding. Either way, it's a nice 9.8 and it's a nice strong sale on Heritage Auctions. This is the only copy of this issue graded. So of course it's a pop one, none higher. Went for $2,400. This one is very cool, coming in at number 9. This is Lionel Messi, and here he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated China in 2007. And this was the first time that Lionel Messi appeared on the cover of any Sports Illustrated publication, the first time he was featured on the cover of a Sports Illustrated. Of course, this was not the American version. It wasn't until, I believe, 2014 that he was featured on his first American cover. But this is 7 years earlier than that. It's a CGC 9.4 copy. CGC even included on the label first Lionel Messi cover. And this one sold in a private sale. A good friend of mine reached out to me who's been in the hobby for a while, confirmed this sale, and it went for $2,500. There've only been 4 copies of this one graded, and this is a pop one with none higher. Coming in at number 8, once again, we got PSA slabbing and authenticating a cover only. And this is Baseball Magazine from 1935. And you've got Babe Ruth on the cover. And this one's been autographed by the Babe, authenticated by PSA, of course, sold on Heritage Auctions for $2,640. Coming in at number 7, I think this is underrated, and to be honest, I think this is a major steal for the buyer. This is the very first premiere issue for Sports Illustrated for Kids. Came out in 1989. Now, SI for Kids, in terms of collectability of the covers, has not quite shown much yet. Definitely not compared to the normal Sports Illustrated, but we do know 2 things. We know, number 1, that Sports Illustrated for Kids has been extremely popular in the collector space when it comes to the cards on the inside. We also know, number 2, that the premiere issue, issue number 1 for well-known publications, have been historically selling very, very well. It doesn't matter what the publication is. I mean, we saw an issue number 1 for Thrasher earlier, selling for $1,500 raw, and there's tons and tons of examples of lots of different publications out there. Not only that, but you got Michael Jordan on the cover, probably the most collectible athlete in this entire hobby, and this is a CGC 9.8. There have been 49 copies of this graded, and it's a pop one with none higher. I think that the potential for growth on this specific copy is really huge. So congrats to the buyer here. This one went for $2,700 on eBay. Coming in at number 6, it's the classic A Star is Born. First pro Sports Illustrated cover for Michael Jordan from 1984 as a rookie with the Chicago Bulls. This is a CGC 8.5 newsstand copy, and it sold for $2,750 on eBay. There have been 115 newsstand copies of this issue graded, and at the 8.5 level, it's a pop 14 with 23 copies graded higher. And we got a 2-way tie at number 4, starting off with one of the most iconic, maybe the most iconic cover image of all time on Sports Illustrated. This is from 1980. It's the Miracle on Ice cover. This is a CGC 8.5 newsstand copy. It's sold on Heritage Auctions for $3,120. There have been 114 newsstand copies of this issue graded, and it's a pop 15 at the CGC 8.5 level with 19 copies graded higher. Another sale coming in for a tie at number 4 is Sport Magazine from 1950, and you got George Mikan, one of the first all-stars, one of the first true legends of basketball of the NBA. This is a CGC 9.4 copy, folks. It's not easy to get a 9.4 copy from 1950. And I'm going to brag again, my friends, because this is the second issue on the list that I personally cleaned and pressed for a friend. Really happy for him to get this strong sale from Heritage Auctions, $3,120. There have been 13 copies of this issue graded, and this is a pop one with none higher. Coming in at number 3, here's Michael Jordan's very first Sports Illustrated cover, still in college with North Carolina. This is from 1983, sharing the image with Sam Perkins, and this is a CGC 7.0 newsstand copy. This one sold on eBay for $3,650. There have been 157 newsstand copies of this issue graded. It's a little easier to obtain than the first pro cover, I think because it was the college basketball preview. So a lot of people pick up those different previews of the college basketball and the MLB and that type of thing. And so 157 newsstand copies. This is a Pop 21 at the 7.0 level. There are 45 copies graded higher. Coming in at number 2, I told you that the Eddie Matthews signed copies of the first issue have really been blowing up. And here you go. This is a CGC 9.4 copy that has been signed by Eddie Matthews. Now, it is a 9.4 qualified. That's because, as many of you know, CGC up to this point has not been authenticating autographs. That just literally changed within the last few weeks. So, man, look at this. Even in the CGC 9.4 qualified case, this one sold on Heritage Auctions for $3,720. Crack that baby out, resend it to CGC, get it slabbed in a nice JSA authentication label, or maybe even wait for PSA. And I could see this guy doing much, much higher numbers down the road. And coming in at number 1, I got to say this one's a little anticlimactic, but it sold for $4,200. This is a game program from 1923, Chicago Bears versus the Akron Pros, and looked to be in near mint condition. That's how it was described. So yeah, strong sale here. Of course, game programs are often lumped into the category with magazines. This one could probably be graded depending on the dimensions. And the Chicago Bears and Akron Pros are snagging the number 1 spot for October 2024. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not yet done so, please subscribe to this channel. I also appreciate likes and comments. And until the next video, we'll see you next time.